Welcome to Wear Your Cape to Work, a podcast hosted by Project Insight. We believe that project and program managers are the real superheroes of every organization. We want you to hear their stories so you can be inspired to wear your own cape to work. Our guest on today's podcast has built an impressive project management career across continents, industries, and major transformations. Fisayo Folarin began her project management career in Nigeria, leading IT and PMO efforts at one of the country's largest banks before relocating to Canada. It was a bold move that required rebuilding her career from the ground up. She's known for her relentless pursuit of efficiency and her ability to build trust through reliability and results. She's led high-stakes cloud migrations, improved delivery processes, and now she coaches others to lead with confidence. So thank you so much for joining us today, Fisayo. We're very glad that you could be here with us.
I'm glad to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Yep, totally our pleasure. We are excited to talk about all the different places that you've been working in project management. You've had a long career path and it's led into many different industries kind of naturally, but there's so much that you can tell our audience about your experience. So let's just rewind the clock a little bit. Maybe tell us what first pulled you into the world of project management.
You know, this is a story I like to tell because just like maybe 90% of the project managers I meet every day, it wasn't really my plan to be a project manager. I'm one of those people who got out of college with a banking and finance degree, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was looking for a job, and it just made sense to look for a job in a bank because back in Nigeria, where I originally came from before I moved to North America, the most common employer, right, were banks. So I got my first role in a bank. I was lucky enough to be part of the first set of people that they hired to their call center. So they were just building out their call center. And the beauty of that role for me was that I had the opportunity to test out new processes, to work directly with the project team that set up the call center, to test out new technology, right? Because they hadn't done this before. So everything was just new. And I was coming straight out of college. They needed people who hadn't been influenced by the bank. I think one of the goals was to have people who were coming with like fresh eyes. And we went through a very rigorous training, right? Because they wanted us to be like the standard of excellence for customer service. And I think they achieved the goal because hungry college graduates, you're just looking to do your best in your best role, right? So you're going to do everything they tell you to do. That actually piqued my curiosity, right? I was curious about how the team set up the contact center. It was something I was always curious about. Like, what do you guys actually do? How do you get to do this kind of work where you're setting up new things that didn't exist before? And even though I had that at the back of my mind, I didn't think much of it. But again, like I said, for the 2 years I was at the contact center, I always had a reason to work with the project team because it's either they're introducing some new process or some new tech that we're going to use. And so just towards the end of my tenure, I was looking for other places to go. And the funny thing is, I actually tried to join a team called like the diaspora banking team, where they service clients who don't reside in the country. So, because we have a lot of people who are Nigerian but live outside of Nigeria, and that bank with the bank I was working with First Bank. So, I tried to join that team and it was sort of like a sales role. And very quickly, just from the interview, I knew, okay, this is not exactly what I want to do.
Not your thing.
Exactly. This is not exactly what I want to do. But thankfully, a spot opened up on the project team. But like I said before, these were people I knew. Like the interview was a laughing fest because the person I was talking to, somebody I knew already. So I got the role and started out as a project analyst. And then the rest is history.
Wow. So I'm seeing some themes or hearing some themes. I'm sure our audience is too. We can already tell that she likes workflows and processes and she doesn't like them to be inefficient and, tech and those processes in tech. And that we're going to probably hear today that is a common theme of all of your roles and what really drove you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also really appreciate the curiosity and the aptitude toward excellence that you said at the same point. What were some of the first projects that you were leading when you took on, when you joined the project team?
So when I joined the project team, you think, because I knew the people who interviewed me, I was familiar with a few people, it would be a walk in the park. No, it wasn't. So the very first project I had to
Darn.
work on, just like anything, right? If you're trying something new, you should always expect that there will be a learning curve. And there's always that, that misconception that, oh, what they're doing should be simple. What's the big deal? Didn't they just set up the contact center? I
Right.
could do that, right? And then I joined this team and they were working on this centralized processing center. That's what we call like shared services, right? That's what
Right.
they were setting up, where we're going to centralize account opening, card issuance, all of those manual tasks that were typically done before at the branch. They wanted to do them in a central location. So part of my role, one of the first projects I was working on was to do like a time motion analysis. So yes, this speaks to that process thing you mentioned, where we're trying to see how long it takes each processor at that center to get the work done and then see what efficiencies can be introduced into how they did their work. And I think my biggest challenge on that project was not the actual timing and just monitoring what people were doing. It was the fact that there was large sorts of data that we needed to sit down and analyze. And I wasn't so good with Excel. Again, fresh grad, hadn't used much of Excel spreadsheets before that role. And then I was assigned to work with the project manager. I was an analyst at that time. And I noticed that the project manager, with ease, like in seconds, is able to pull out these beautiful dashboards to analyze data. And I'm like, when will I be able to do this? At what point will I be this good? I know it was a thought that came through my mind. And just looking back now, I'm like, nah, you can give me any data, it doesn't matter. I'll figure it out. And that's the beauty of doing something long enough to learn it. So it was a very interesting project for me because it helped me to pick up a lot of the skills that I think
Mm.
any project manager needs to survive, even without necessarily being in a project management role. These are skills that you need to survive as a project manager. Yeah.
So, for those project managers who are listening right now, who are
Yeah.
new to a role like that, like knowing, oh, I'm totally an organized process person, or I know that I can
Mm-hmm.
help get this project stuff done. Can you help
Right.
them with that learning curve? Maybe give them 2, 3, 4, 5 skills that you know they're going to need to pick up that they may not have right out of the gate?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think the first one we talked about already is curiosity. Like, you
Mm.
have to be curious enough because you're coming into this role. You probably know a little bit, but there's a lot that you probably don't know as well. So, I would
Mm-hmm.
say one of the things that helped me was I saw that person, I desired to be able to do what he did. And then the first chance I got to sign up for a training, you can imagine the training I signed up for was Excel. I just needed to know how to do things
Yes.
better because, again, no shade to the person who I was buddying with. The person was busy, so there's only so much he could show me. And I
Right.
wanted to get to a place where I could work confidently and really support the team. So curiosity is a big one. I know I asked a lot of questions when I first
Mm.
joined the team. I always wanted to know why or why not,
Mm.
as the case may
Oh,
be,
yeah.
like, or why not. So curiosity
Right.
is a big one. I would say um, being transparent is another one. And
Mm.
when I say transparency, I mean like be clear, be upfront about what you don't know. Like I could have forged it and said, "Oh, I know how to do this, no problem,"
Oh,
and then
right.
spend hours and hours on YouTube trying to figure it out. And
Yeah.
YouTube wasn't even really a thing at that time, right? Not like I'm
Right.
dating myself or anything, but instead, what I did was, okay, I don't know this now, but I could learn it and then again ask questions. So that transparency coupled with your curiosity, I think goes a long way because you're like, okay, this
Yeah.
is me, this is where I am. I don't know this now, but I can learn it. And
Mm-hmm.
coming back to that person to say, oh, this is what I've learned. I'm having trouble with this. Can you help me? Has helped
Mm.
me a lot. And the other one will
Right.
be communication.
Yeah.
We know that like 85% of a project manager's job is communicating with people. And
Did you
I
say
feel
85?
more than
85%?
85%, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Wow.
it's either you're writing reports or you're leading a meeting or you're reaching out to somebody on Teams or you're
Mm-hmm.
writing a draft of something, you're trying to understand large data inputs on several projects. You're trying to like read up stuff or communicate stuff. You're going to be communicating more than 85% of the time. So being able to communicate well, I think, is important. And sometimes when we say communication, it can sound really abstract, but for me, I narrow it down to, do people that I'm talking to understand what I'm trying to say? If the message gets passed, then I have communicated well. Otherwise, I've just wasted my time. And so for me, that helps me to know that I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not trying to sound smart. My goal is to make sure that the message gets to the person I'm trying to communicate to and they understand what I'm trying to say. So being able to communicate really well is super, super important to help you. Like strong communicators, like even if what you're telling them is, I know we said we're going to deliver this on Friday. However, something has changed and now we'll be delivering it on Monday. You'll be surprised how far just being able to communicate that confidently and clearly goes in, again, building trust on your team and helping you be seen as a leader.
Trust, right? Someone will
Yeah.
trust. Matt, you're going to add something.
So just to mention 3, yeah.
No, I'm actually just going to give a bonus one that I think you're just not saying, which is that skill up, right? The idea that I'm going to take that curiosity and I'm going to work toward learning those new pieces that I'm transparent about not knowing, right? I think that's the other one that
No, you've captured it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's one thing to not know something, it's another thing to stay there not knowing that thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So,
to just stay
very
there,
challenging
right?
one, yeah.
Right. So you started out in Nigeria, banking, IT projects, got your feet wet, started, I don't know how long you were actually there. Maybe you can tell us, but you've shared that moving away from Nigeria and coming to another country and starting over as a project manager in another country was one of the hardest things that you've ever done.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience?
Oh, yeah. And I think that experience has been like the foundation of a lot of what I do right now on LinkedIn, where I'm sharing with people about how you can get into project management and how to demystify, because a lot of people think, oh, it's impossible. Like for me, I'll give an example of myself, my story. Like you mentioned, so I'd worked at this bank, the same bank where I started out. I was there for almost 10 years. I say 9 years and 9 months. Yeah, I was there for a while. And the beauty was I stayed there that long because I wasn't doing the same thing. So like I mentioned, I started out in customer service and then became a project analyst, became an associate, started managing projects on my own. At some point, I was in charge of a PMO. And when I left Nigeria, I was working on a management program. So it was a very enriching experience. Like I didn't do one thing for too long, which kind of fed into my personality type. I'm kind of person who I like to do things that challenge me, right? I get bored after a while, but yeah. So after I had done all of that, moving to Canada was just like a next step for me to say, okay, for several reasons, we made the decision to move to Canada. Some of it economic, some of it was just pure curiosity again to see what life would be like outside of Nigeria, right? And so after landing, or before coming, so there are some programs, thankfully, that are available to people who are moving to Canada. Newcomer programs where they start to tell you what life is like in Canada, how to build a resume, what kind of resume a Canadian employer would like to see, how to position yourself properly. So I joined those programs. There were a few of them. I think I took like 2 different programs because, overachiever.
Wow.
I took like 2 different programs.
She's like, I'll do it
and
all.
I had a resume ready. I actually even started applying for jobs before I came to Canada and got 2 interviews actually before leaving Nigeria. So I was feeling really good about my odds. I'm like, okay, if I'm sitting in Nigeria and they're calling me, and this was way before the pandemic. So globalization was not what it is now.
I see.
Like getting a job from another country wasn't really so popular. Only a few companies did that. So I was like, okay, if I could attract, these calls from these people, then maybe I'm on the right track. And I was thinking, oh, I'll get a job very quickly. And then after doing all of that, landing here, I started to see the reality. And the biggest reality factor for me was because I didn't know the culture enough. And so there were things that you typically have to learn anytime you move into a new environment. Like you can't really cheat the process. You have to learn how to adapt to your new environment. And for me, those were the things I first noticed because the first interview, they were smiling at me, I was smiling at them. I thought the interview went well, and then they ghosted me. Same thing for the second and the third.
No.
Yeah. I experienced so much
third.
ghosting. And I was like, what's going on here? It forced me to rethink my strategy. and figure out, okay, so what am I doing wrong that is not making me get the jobs?
So what was the next role when you did finally get a position in Canada?
So, okay, so most of my background was implementing projects in the bank where I worked back in Nigeria. So coming to Canada, it was kind of in a related industry. So I was working as a project manager. I got a job as a project manager with a company in the insurance industry. So they're more of like a benefits administration company, but again, it was still financial services. And I was told that my experience in banking was really, really helpful in sealing the deal for me as a project manager there. Even though my role had nothing to do with the operations or my finance background, I don't think really came to bear on the job, but it was one of the things that was considered before I got the job.
And did you stay there long, or did you make another transition to something new after that?
So I was there for a couple of years, like 2.5 years. So I was there for quite a bit. Well, depending on who is listening, but I was there for quite a bit. But again, you need to know that I was coming from a place where I was 10 years. I spent 10 years at one company. And so I made a move though after that because I was also curious about the fintech space. And I got an opportunity to work with a fintech company. And so that was my transition from banking and being on the customer side of things into being on the vendor side of things. And it was a really good transition for me. I enjoyed the new role because it gave me an opportunity to work in the credit union space, helping credit unions on their digital banking journeys. And it was a very fulfilling role for me. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about one of your favorite projects there. We, work at Project Insight. We work with several credit unions, and the project management teams there also seem very fulfilled. Like they're really hands-on, and there's some exciting things happening.
Yeah, one of the things I love the most about working there is there's this sense of brotherhood in the credit union space where they all work together. So sometimes I'll have like 5 projects on the go. Most of them were digital banking projects. So for those credit unions, they were trying to get off their previous platform to a newer and more efficient platform. And so I was leading the team that was doing a lot of the migrations. So some of them, we bundled them together and we had like 5 credit unions in one location in the same province. And they all knew each other. Like credit union A will talk to credit union B and they know, oh, okay, this person, you're going live in October, you're going live in September. And so that bunch of projects were very fulfilling for me because for some of these credit unions, one of the projects I got to handle for them was to migrate them off their website. So they had a website they needed to move off of as well. And they had a deadline, and else they would earn penalties of about 150K, right? And we just had 3 months to get it done for about 9 credit unions. And it seemed impossible, but we actually nailed it. Like it took a lot of exceptional approvals because this was something that had to be done before December, right? And so most companies, like, they have a freeze window, and the freeze window is somewhere around the end of November. So lots of change requests, lots of exceptional approvals to get work pushed through, lots of prioritization. Because at some point, what we had to do was we're like, you to your new website. These are the known issues. There are some things we're just going to have to fix in the new year, but we got it done. And for me, it was really fulfilling because it was challenging. There was no time. There was this huge fine, and we got it done.
Matt's got a question.
That's great. Yeah, no, I mean, also the prudence of that type of industry as well, right? That you're fighting against. What sort of similarities were there, in that project management world to what you had been doing in banking,
Oh, so much. Because again, I think in my time at the bank, I had the opportunity of working on 2 digital banking projects. So it was like, at some point, I was like, I should just label myself a digital banking project manager because at this point,
you're getting so specific. Yeah,
exactly. So there are so many parallels. The only major difference I saw was that now, in this case, instead of being on the customer side where I'm working with a vendor who is implementing their product, making sure that I get my teams ready, do all the change management, do all of the change control. This time around, I was on the vendor side, helping the customer teams to get ready, making sure that I connected with the key point of contacts at the client side. So most times, because again, these are credit unions, most times that person is like their chief of operations or something, or their head of HR in some cases. Like credit unions, many of them wear many hats. So it was
Right.
that was the major difference I saw, that unlike a commercial bank where you have departments and structure and everybody has their roles and they're defined. For the credit union space, most times in those projects you're working with maybe 3 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's some big difference. So
Oh, yeah.
I want to skip ahead because we're kind of going through your whole history, but overarchingly, you've had this excitement about efficiency. I think your LinkedIn headline, I've got to read it, but I think it says you help organizations get things done with 100% efficiency. That's a huge claim. It's super bold.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
love it because that's our goal at Project Insight too, is to give project managers and companies that superpower to be 100% efficient, to prioritize, like you said, like you did in those credit union projects, prioritize, drop things, rearrange, do change management. How do we execute all of this efficiently? So what does 100% efficiency mean to you in practice?
For me, in practice, it just means it's a commitment. I'm making a commitment to say I'm going to do everything to make sure that your project gets delivered on time. And so what that looks like is making sure that I prioritize communication. And I think I talked about it earlier, where
Yep.
communication has to be one of your biggest skills to succeed as a project manager, because you have to know how to communicate, when to communicate, and how to communicate to the different stakeholder groups, right? So 100% efficiency also looks like asking questions, making sure I understand the why. Because I've been in situations where I was following a different goal and the company had a separate goal from what I was following, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I learned a very hard lesson from that, where I was thinking, oh, yes, the goal of this project is to deliver and make sure that we're profitable. Because, yes, they kept drumming it in my ears. We have to make sure we maintain this margin. But what I wasn't aware of was that because that client was one of the pioneers for that product, they didn't really care about being profitable with the implementation. They just wanted to make sure they got the product implemented, because you see, that's where the relationship starts to build, and they were open to building what the client needed. So again, very, very important to make sure that you're in alignment. Very, very important. Yeah.
How do you find that information out? Like we've talked about that in some of our webinar series, understand the why, and not just that for yourself, but as a project manager, you're managing teams. So you do have to translate that to the people that are doing the project too. You're kind of the cheerleader for the why. But how do you recommend people understand the why? You said asking a lot of questions. Any particular person or people you recommend?
So I feel like, okay, so my experience, I use my experience as an example. For that particular project, how I got to the why was when, for example, the client comes and says, oh, they need all of these things. And then I have my architect saying, oh, it's out of the box. It's not out of the box. It's not out of the box. Well, that's a customization. And I started to notice that the client was getting angry. Like they, at some point, started to feel like we're just trying to fleece them and make sure that we got them to pay for customizations for everything. And then I'm like, seriously, I am trying to fleece you. Like, I'm going to buy this Hermes bag from this implementation. I hope you know my salary is not going to change. I really want to work with you to get this work done, right? And so from just understanding that the client was getting frustrated and having conversations with my leaders to say, look, they have paid this much. And then the product, like I said, they were one of the pioneers. So it was really still the maturity model for that product was still in its infancy, right? And then I started to ask questions of the account manager to say, what are we willing to negotiate with this client to get this work done? And that's when I started to uncover that, oh, actually, we'd rather keep the relationship than make a few bucks. But they didn't tell me upfront. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this upfront? And they're like, well, we don't want you to work like you have a blank check, right? They still needed those controls. So again, sometimes it's not like, oh, you have this structure. It's again asking the right questions when you see, and most of them come through change discussions, right? When scope is changing or timelines are changing, being able to ask about priority, ask about what kind of trade-offs are available to make sure that we hit the goal, which is to make sure that the client is satisfied. Yeah.
So we're hearing about that emotional intelligence piece. Again, that's part of communication. You're talking about feeling that tension from the customer, and recognizing that in your project management role. No one asked you to feel that or know that, but it's part of what you bring to that job that makes you to be effective. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So now you've gone from IT, fintech into SaaS, and you're doing some coaching. What inspired the shift into the coaching and consulting, and what kind of professionals do you like to help the most?
So what inspired me was, I think I was trying to say this story earlier and lost my train of thought. Yeah, was when I was still looking for a job, I posted one day about how I had like multiple interviews and all the emotions when you're looking for a job, from anxiety to being hopeful to feeling disappointed when you don't hear anything. And it was a very vulnerable post for me, right? I ever had a friend who said, "Are you sure you want to be posting that on LinkedIn?" And I'm like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I'm still looking for a job. What's the worst that could happen?
Right.
LinkedIn is not going to tell me to get off their platform because I'm sharing my journey anyway.
Right.
So I was like, what do I have to lose? And then from that post, somebody reached out to me. I didn't know this person from anywhere. I just had a friend repost it, and he was a friend of that friend. And he was like, "I've been there. I'll help you." And this person spent like more than 10 hours coaching me through how to make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward in interviews, being able to communicate my experience in a way that is more impactful. And they didn't ask for a dime. They didn't even know me from anywhere. And I was like, okay, if somebody who doesn't know me can do this, how can I pay it forward? And so that kind of formed the foundation of me posting more regularly, because I had been posting on LinkedIn, but it wasn't really purposeful at that time. But after that experience, I committed to sharing some of the things I learned on my journey in the hopes that it'll help somebody else who is trying to also find their foot in project management.
That's inspiring. That really is. That's so nice.
It's admirable.
Yeah.
So on this podcast, we like to talk a little bit about project management superpowers. And yes, right. Well, I can tell that you are aware of your strengths, right? It could be even in this hunt of what you were trying to find a certain role that fit your strengths, but bringing your strengths into a next role, and knowing what strengths you wanted to build even next. But is there a special project management superpower that when you think of your project work, you really think shines through, if you had to name your superpower in projects?
If I had to name one thing, just one thing, it would be being reliable. I know that sounds big. When I say reliable, like, what are you talking about? It's really just about making sure that I build the kind of trust with my team where they know Fisayo is going to get it done, or Fisayo is here to help. And that's not something you get on day one. Like literally any project or any team you join, they're skeptical about what you're here to do. Some teams don't even know what project managers are for, and they're like, "Why are you here again?" I get that kind of response sometimes.
Yes.
But over time, what I usually end up with is the team gets to know that I'm there to help them. And it's simple ways. Like, I quickly like to define how we're going to communicate in the team. So whether that is by maybe having touch points, regular meetings, so we can talk about how things are going, how I can help, or there are some teams where they don't like to have meetings, and maybe we use Slack for communicating. So I like to define what we call the ways of working very early on in the team. And what it does, it also helps create some stability in the team, because they know no matter what's going on during the week, at this so time, I get to come into this safe space, and I know this person is going to help. And then the other thing is, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. It's just those simple things, like where I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this away and get a solution. I try as much as possible, not like I don't drop the balls, but I try as much as possible to make sure I get it done, or at least give you updates on where things are, right? And then it also ties to that wanting to understand the why. Many times I've joined teams where they've been doing things a certain way for whatever reason, and I ask some questions. I believe that if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I also believe that there are better ways to do things. So it's just healthy balance of keeping things the way they are and trying to introduce again systems and processes that might help the team. I've been on teams where they don't like to use Jira. They like to do things in emails, and it's just a matter of showing them how inefficient whatever systems they're using are. And the best way to do that is let them do it. Highlight some of the things. I've had a situation where I've like built a dashboard and just use that in meetings. And I'm like, what do you think about this dashboard? Do you think it helps? And with time, after showing them some of the benefits of using this new system, I buy them over without necessarily saying whatever they were using before doesn't work, but helping them see what's in it for them. How is this going to help me be better? And just getting the team to trust me. So in a nutshell, my biggest superpower would be just that, making sure that I build trust in the team and they see me as a reliable person.
We know that when the bat sign goes up right into the sky, that you're going to swoop down to help out. Right?
They're calling Super Fisayo to come rescue.
You know what? I'm feeling very hyped, right? But it's not always pretty. Because sometimes being reliable means telling them the truth when they're doing things that might not be helpful as well.
Yeah.
Or when people are slacking off. I've had that as well. Being able to prove to the team that we need to stretch ourselves here and get things done. So again, it's a balance between being reliable and also making sure that we get the work done. Yeah.
I really like what you said about how you built that trust in the systems, where you had a balance between something that was working and we don't need to fix it, and something that wasn't working and we could adjust it. Because I'm sure it doesn't feel great when someone comes in and wants to change everything. That makes people just get uncomfortable and worried and have anxiety about something that they thought was sort of working. So if you're coming in with that reliability of, I'm not going to pester or bother with anything that's going well, and I'm going to model what might be better, but you tell me if it is or if it isn't, that sounds really palatable. Like I can swallow that. Like if someone comes in that way and says, well, I think this could work. Sometimes you don't have time to do that though, right? I mean, sometimes you do just have to be forthright and say, look, I think I have a better idea. Let me test me out on this. Let me just show you what I think and you can give me your feedback. But because you've been that reliable person all along, I bet you're easier to trust than someone who is up and down or is totally new to the scene.
No, you're very right. Now, part of the reliability is also making sure that you keep things consistent. I think one big part of reliability is being consistent. Like if you have a meeting weekly, you meet at that time and make sure that you send the notes after the meeting. Make sure that that's part of reliability, right? People know that, okay, if I'm going to look for meeting notes, I'm going to find it. Or if I'm going to look for whatever it is, I'm going to find it because Fisayo is consistent. That's another big part of it too. Yeah.
I have a feeling that everybody around you is not going to be surprised that we picked you to be on this podcast for Wear Your Cape to Work. They're thinking, oh yeah, Fisayo, she wears her cape to work for sure. We've seen it flying down the hallway or over a Zoom call or running through Slack. So we just really want to say thank you for doing that, for showing up consistently at all of your workplaces. It sounds like from the very beginning, you knew that that was important, and you've just brought that through all of your different roles. So thank you for doing that on behalf of our audience, on behalf of the people who know you at work. It's a superpower. It really is. And we just want to applaud you and shine a bright light on how project managers like you bring those kinds of strengths into their workplace. So thank you so much for joining us today on Wear Your Cape to Work.
I appreciate it. Is this part where we show?
Yes, this is. She's got her mug. I have mine. Matt sometimes has his. We sometimes have it. We sometimes don't. But let's get it up there. Dun, dun, dun. There we are. I love it. Did you love it? It looks great. Yours looks so cool.
It does look great. It really does.
It was a good one. Many of our audience guests put it in their cabinet just so every morning they open it up, but it's in there even if they don't use it for coffee. But I'm so glad you could be here with us. It's wonderful to have you.
I'm happy that you reached out because this has been fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Wear Your Cape to Work podcast, hosted by Project Insight. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, or leave us a comment. If you subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or other favorite podcast channels, you'll receive notifications of all of our new episodes. We'd also love it if you would share Wear Your Cape to Work with your network of PMPs or anyone else who might enjoy the show. Project Insight is an online project and portfolio management software that helps companies connect project data from across all of their teams and software tools so that they can make confident decisions about their business. Our website is projectinsight.com, and there you can find many resources for project professionals, including free PDU webinars, as well as a place to register for a demonstration or a consultation with one of our success teams. Thank you once again for joining today's conversation, and most importantly, thanks for wearing your cape to work.